The Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.
Hi, you're listening to the Fantasy Football Edge podcast. My name is Mills. It's game week 27, and I'm joined this week by Quigliano, the great Quigliano. How are you, my fine sir?
It is good to be back. It's sort of too long of a delay in between each of these. I think there's been like gaps in the game week, and then there's been I've not been available. JP's had to step in. It feels like it's been ages.
It does feel like it's been a while. I was almost having to second guess myself then when I said game week 27, because last week we sort of had two game weeks, didn't we, in 1 week. And like you say, we kind of missed out. In fact, Quigliano, I don't know if you know this, but I actually attempted to do a podcast on my own last week, which is only the second time I've ever done that. And I hate it. I quite like it, but I feel like I'm just waffling on forever. So it is good to have you back. But no JP this week. Some strange goings on with that young man. We kind of said we were going to record at 7:30 p.m. today. So I sent him a little WhatsApp. Well, we got a little podcast WhatsApp group, haven't we? And I sent him a little WhatsApp saying, "Are you still on for 7:30?" And he messaged back saying, 50-50. I'll let you know I'll let you know on the day. I'm like, today is the day. I don't know what's going on with that young man. Any ideas?
We do. We touched on it a few weeks ago, didn't we?
We did.
He is loved up again. So you won't get a normal human out of JP. If this all works out, that's it. Just you'll never see him again. If it all goes wrong though, then he will be back on the podcast. So whether you want him to succeed or not, is whether you want to hear JP or not again. So
well, he's always come back in the past, is all I'm going to say on that. So anyway, yes, we will move on. And lots has happened since the last time we spoke, Quigliano. Obviously, the transfer window closing. A lot of movement towards the end of the transfer window, particularly Aubameyang coming in. And then the Mkhitaryan and Sanchez swap, Giroud going to Chelsea, the knock-on effect of one transfer just had a huge kind of ripple effect, didn't it? So, thoughts on those transfers before we sort of kick off the main sort of podcast today? I mean, I suppose a lot of people are talking about Aubameyang, but Mkhitaryan as well, I suppose. I mean, I had him in last week and the week before. So happy last week, but who is the standout player there? Like, is there one of those players that you think you just got to get them in?
I mean, attacking wise, it opens it all up. I mean, proof was last week, Ramsey getting a hat trick. You've got a player there that was sort of not doing much. I think he was injured for a while, but it opens the door for him to maybe be performing. You've obviously got Mickey chipping in with the assists, and that's what, like when he came to the Premier League, that's what everyone was expecting. Lots of assists, lots of attacking play, goals here and there. So he obviously now looks like a real option. And then Aubameyang, is a proven goal scorer at an elite level. So you would expect him to be chipping in as well. You've got Lacazette in that team, who knows how that's going to all work out. So Arsenal do look like a real option.
Yeah,
it's just probably the worst game week to trying to test that. The fact that they're playing away at Spurs.
And this is what I love about Fantasy Premier League, because the top three players this week that have been transferred in are all Arsenal players. So Mkhitaryan is the top one, followed by Aubameyang and then Ramsey. So there's always that sort of knee-jerk reaction to an amazing result. But like you say, tough fixture this week for Arsenal. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's actually going to be quite an open game. I think Arsenal can't afford to go there and try and defend. They've got to attack. It's the only way they're going to win that. Well, obviously it's the only way they're going to win the game. But they will lose if they go and try and defend, I think. So it will be an interesting one.
Yeah. This is where the game gets more interesting for me, because it all becomes down to your 50-50 choices. So everyone's probably got to have Salah. That's not a 50-50 choice. You have to have Salah on your team. But then it's right, are you going to go with a KDB, Sanchez or Hazard in terms of your power midfielder? Are you going to have an Ozil, Mkhitaryan type player in there? Are you going to have Sterling, Ali, Eriksen? There's so many choices now within that this is where you can actually climb back up a table, because teams are going to start to look different. And it's just about which player you invest that kicks on and actually that does well before everyone then transfers him in, as you say, jumping on the bandwagon.
Absolutely. And the flip side of that is players going out, and you're seeing players like Alonso and Sterling in the top 5 transfers out. I mean, Sterling particularly, I do worry for him a little bit, the way he was yanked off last week against Burnley by Pep Guardiola. He did not look happy, especially when he missed that absolute sitter. So it will be interesting to see what happens with him going forwards. But lots of that to talk about today. We're actually going to open up the podcast extra time for everyone today. So everyone gets it for free this week, just as a sort of, apology for not having a podcast last week. Not that we necessarily need to do that, but I just feel like being generous. And we've got plenty coming up. We've got the Gary and the long shot, lots of side tips and a few questions, and good old Stat Attack is going to come back as well. And I've even got a new feature to introduce that we were going to bring in today with JP, but we will wait and keep hold of it. But I will tell you what that is towards the end of the pod. So without further ado, Quigliano, let's hear your Gary of the week.
I mean, I was thinking about this in terms of, coming to me for tips at the minute. It's been quite a tough season so far. Most of these 50-50s I've talked about haven't worked out. So coming to this podcast for tips is like asking a blind man for directions. There's a chance that you're going to get the right one, but all in all, you may be more lost than you were when you asked him. So,
I mean,
Gary
you've really sold it now. So.
Gary of the week, I think you can't ignore him. And had I just captained this man every single week, I've been in a much better position. Mohamed Salah. He is a little magician for that team. He's a bit of a genius. Such an attacking threat. They've got Southampton, who very hit and miss, more miss than they are hit. And I think good game for him. Go Salah, captain. I think get your Gary of the week.
Yeah, I think you're right, Quigliano, and I think the kind of what you said there, that if you captained him every week for the season, I know for a fact I would have a lot more points than I have right now. I seem to make not necessarily the wrong choice every week, but I never kind of fully capitalise.
You'd have 408 points. 408 points if you'd have captained him every week.
Wow. Well, there you go. I mean, that
just
speaks
from one
for itself.
player.
And I agree. Quigliano, the fixture against Southampton does look favourable. So I like that a lot. I'm sure we'll be talking about a few other favourite sort of players that should perform well later on. But have you got a Xabi Alonso for us?
We've got a long shot, yeah. New sign into the league, came in that transfer window. It is a bit of a long shot. I did consider putting him in. It was the fixture that stopped me, and let that be a lesson to you. It's Deulofeu, good attacking player. Watford team where they don't make any secrets about how they're going to play with a big target man up there that is going to allow those wide men to sort of play off. And Deulofeu looks like a good option and a good game against Chelsea. He's the long shot this week.
Absolutely. I think he did get a goal and an assist, didn't he, against Chelsea? So It was a pretty good performance. And he's played pretty much the full games, give or take a few minutes for the last two. So I do like that shout a lot. In fact, it was in my thoughts for a slightly more expensive steal or no deal this week, but he's probably not really a steal or no deal, but I think he definitely is a long shot, and I think he's a good one. Side tips, Quigliano, what have you got in the way of those for us?
Bit of a mixed bag here. I've tried to look across the field. Annoyed that I saw this one on the Scout, actually, on the FPL app, but I put him in last week and was rewarded with absolutely no points from him. But Bauer at Stoke, 4.5. Got some friends who are Stoke fans, spoke very highly of him in terms of his pace. He does get up and down that wing. He's a good player in a Stoke team that have no choice but to get better. I think Lambert is solving a few of their vulnerabilities. So chance there for a bit of a Stoke defender. Sanchez, I think Man United going to Newcastle is a decent fixture. I think that he is going to spring to life soon for Man United, and I think that's a good one to stick with him. Chicharito, West Ham, they haven't got many options up front at the minute, so I do see him representing West Ham up front, and they're playing Watford again, who can concede. I think there's a chance there for him. There's the usual suspects of Aguero, Sterling, KDB, but also going to talk a bit about Bernardo Silva. Cheaper replacement for Sané, looks to be chipping in terms of the assists. Very good option. So there you go, my friend. Oh, one more, and that is Jordan Ibe, who is just consistently chipping away for Bournemouth. as they are going through a half-decent spell at 4.9 million. I think he is a nice, cheap option for you.
I like that. I think there's some decent options there. And I think what's interesting about that is that you've got quite a lot of midfielders and defensive players in there, and it kind of brings me on to a question. And in fact, we'll cover it in a second. But so just get thinking about this, Quigliano, about the possibility of having one striker, and we're going to talk about that right after this.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast. 90% drivel, 9% ego, and 1% tips.
Okay, Quigliano, so sort of teased you there a little bit. This is something that I've picked up this season, and probably more so this season than any other, that the idea of having one striker has become a little bit more, not necessarily fashionable, but something that certainly a few managers are adopting and having some good success with it, because they're able to pump those funds into the midfield, where the midfielders are generally performing pretty well this season. Is that a strategy that you would adopt, do you think, or is it? I think personally it would be a tough pill to swallow. But what are your thoughts on
that? I can see why it happens, because there's plenty of strikers to choose from at the high end of the market that are going to be regular goal scorers. As soon as you said that, I wrote a quick list of people that spring to mind that kind of also suggests that you don't do it. But you could choose easily one of Kane, Aguero, Lukaku, Morata, Firmino, Aubameyang. One of those could lead your line, consistently bring you some points, and then rely on those midfielders. But I think when you name all those names, why not? They're consistently going to be scoring goals. They are the furthest up the pitch in order to score those goals. Why don't you want to try and have as many as you can in your team?
I'll tell you what, I think my side of the story, or my sort of perspective on that, would be very different had Kane missed that second penalty at the weekend, because I almost had a heart attack. Because I was the only person in our mini league that had him captain, and he missed the first pen, and I thought, if he misses the second, I'm going to have to make some serious decisions about my FPL career here. It's like, it would have ruined my entire Sunday night. Of course it is.
So you have them in your team because you think, well, not only are they a goal threat, but if they get penalties, they're going to be taking them. And when it goes wrong, he's kind of helped you out. But the flip of that, he could have had 2 goals and you've been laughing.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Good old. I think I can see the merits. I can see the merits of it, but I think have more attackers up front to sort of bring in the regular goals that they're bound to score.
It's an interesting strategy. I look at these teams and they've got one striker, but then you look at the midfield and it's packed full of quality, and they tend to do pretty well. But it's certainly something to have a think about. Something we might cover maybe on the website at fantasyfootballedge.co.uk. I've got a question here from Twitter. This is from Fantasy Carmen. What thoughts on the name, first of all, Fantasy Carmen?
Just a little flash to my head of South Park. That's all I thought.
Okay.
But there you go.
And then the question is, I have bench boost. In fact, this applies very much to me as well. I think this is exactly my situation. I have bench boost and free hit left to play. When is a good time to play them?
Oh, you've played your triple captain.
Yes, unfortunately I have. Yeah. You've still got that up your sleeve, haven't you?
Still got that. Still got the bench boost as well.
Yeah, it didn't go down too well for me. You've used free hit though, haven't you? So it's interesting that strategy throughout the season of where to play them. Did you use your free hit on the Spurs double game week?
Yeah, I did.
That's where I used my triple captain.
It was either or there.
Harry Kane again. there's a theme here.
Now you've said that, what was the actual question?
So
when
bench
was the
boost
right
and
time
free
to play
hit. When's the best time to play bench boost and free hit? As in, so you've still got them available at this point in the season?
I mean, obviously the double game week's going to start coming in. If you can get your team in a position where you're going to have your benches stacked with players that are probably going to be involved in that double game week. Lots of players in your starting 11 in the double game week play your bench boost. You've got a large spread of potential points there. So obviously that is a good time to use it. Free hit, the same again really. If you didn't have the bench boost luxury, you can obviously, for one more game week, destroy your team, fill it with all the players that you think are going to score points in that double game week, like I did, thinking West Ham players, thinking Spurs players, and hope that it comes off. But that's it really.
Yeah.
I think that's a fairly common sense approach on that.
Yeah, I think
unless that you play manager of the month format in which case, if you're on for it and maybe there's a little bit of money involved, you might want to try and secure yourself some cash.
And play sort of back to back. Is that what you're saying? Play them both
Yeah,
in the same month?
Just play it to maybe secure the month for yourself.
Yeah. Okay. If only I could be in such a position. Okay, I'm going to move on to Stat Attack then, Quigliano. And the first one's going to be a question for you. Which team have had the fewest yellow cards this season in the Premier League? Fewest yellow cards. So if they're maybe thinking about teams that, don't necessarily put a tackle in. I think you'd be surprised by this.
I'm familiar with the yellow card process, mate. Okay, I'll just quickly name one off the top of my head. I'm going to go Bournemouth.
You're completely incorrect. It's actually Chelsea who've had 30 yellow cards this season. Really surprised by that, actually. I thought certainly didn't think it would be them. And an interesting one. I want to quickly touch on this North London derby with Spurs and Arsenal. And just sticking to the Stat Attack theme here, Spurs have been winning 5 of their last 6 home games at half-time and at full-time. So if you're a gambling man, which I'm not, but if you are, I think you get 2-1 on that, or thereabouts. Not a bad bet. But is that likely to happen in this game, do you think? Do you think Spurs, first of all, are going to use home advantage there and beat Arsenal? I think it's a fascinating encounter.
Yeah, I think it's a great encounter, actually. I think Arsenal will fancy it based on the back of that the previous result, 5-1 against Everton. Spurs are probably going to look at that and be a bit worried, considering they're conceding against Liverpool as well. Very open game. I can't call that game, actually. Cannot call it. If I had to make a bet, I would put it on Arsenal to win.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that is interesting. I think Spurs will win that. I think they'll win it pretty comfortably. So anyway, we'll see. Right, Quigliano, I said we were going to keep it fairly short and sweet today, but everyone's going to join us in podcast extra time. So there's more still to come. So we're going to be talking Steal or No Deal. I'm going to introduce our new feature that's coming the next time we get JP on, and we'll be talking our captain picks as well. We'll see you in a minute.
It's time to go deep. It's time for the podcast extra.
Okay, so, Quigliano, no pressure today, but all those freebies, all those cheapies out there are getting a sneak peek of Podcast Extra Time. If you had to sum up what Podcast Extra Time is like in one sentence, what would you say?
I mean, we don't normally do it, do we? We just kind of pretend we say, can you believe that we think people are going to subscribe if we tell them there's an extra time? We just have a cup of tea and just a general chit-chat and then go on our way, but
if only that were true. Today. If only that were true. Okay, that'll do. We don't need to.
It's a real treat. It's a real treat for you and your family. Extra time. It's not just the part of the podcast where you listen to, you get your loved ones round. Maybe you get Nan on loudspeaker and you all just sit round and listen to great banter, great stories, real top quality anecdotes.
My favourite line there is get Nan on loudspeaker. I mean, that's tickled me. I don't know why. Anyway, right. I'm going to go in with the Steal or No Deal, Quigliano. And like I said, so I made a last minute change today, and I was going to go with Deulofeu, but actually I'm going to go with James Ward-Prowse at Southampton. £5.1 million. And he's in pretty decent form. He's got a fixture against Liverpool this week, which I know we've sort of tipped Liverpool players, but he's, I think, Southampton are more than capable of scoring a goal at least against them. And his sort of stats going into the game, I think he played Watford, got 15 points, then he had 2 points, 8 points and 12 points. So that's a pretty decent return in the last 4 games. 5.1
for a 5.1 midfielder. I'm a man that currently has Iwobi in his team at a similar price. And I like that because Iwobi is probably going to be pushed out of that team, I would imagine. I feel like Wenger's going to have to get Lacazette in as well as Aubameyang.
Yeah.
So, Iwobi's position will probably be the one to go. Despite him actually doing quite well, like he's given me a goal and an assist so far, which is more than I deserved. So I like him. I've liked him previously. I think he's a good player, and he's proved it there that he can contribute. As you say, the big hauls like the 15 and the 12. It's consistent. well, I say consistent in the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's consistency over 4 games. So, but that's it's pretty decent recent form, and I just think the fixture looks pretty good as well. So, it's are you going to go with...
we're not going about a rock solid defence there. So I think the fact that they've got Burnley after that, I think it could be one that you just keep as your 4th or 5th midfielder. I'm going to say that's a steal.
Fantastic. Good start to Podcast Extra Time. So there's a free one for all of you. Okay, so Quigliano, I was going to bring this feature in this week, but JP has let us down, so I can't do it. So I can't give away what the whole thing was going to be, but the basic premise of it is that we're going to test him. So every week that he's on, we're going to have this feature called Test JP, where basically he's going to have a question or something to explain, and he's got to talk about it for at least 30 seconds, non-stop. He cannot stop. He's just got to keep going. So, for example, you might say to him, right, JP, you've got 30 seconds to fully explain the offside rule. And whether he knows that rule or doesn't know anything about it, or he has the best knowledge ever, he's got to talk about that for 30 seconds. Thoughts on that? Do you think he's up for that? Do you think he's...
I think you've missed a key trick there. You could have said we've got a new feature. Listen next week. We'll do it in Podcast Extra, because people who are listening to this for free for the first time probably think, "Oh God, that's the new thing they're going to do. It's not worth it." You've said too much. You've said too much.
Yeah, that's true.
I like more of the idea of actually testing, like we send doctors round and do some sort of medical testing.
We might
like
need
instead
that.
Instead of using animals, we use JP.
Oh right, okay.
Put like new substances, burning hot things on him, that type of testing. But I think it could be good. It could be good.
We'll see how game he is for it. So right, that just leaves us then quickly on to talk about captain picks, and I'll let you go first, as I talked a lot last week. So are you going to go with the Gary of the week as the captain? As in Mo Salah?
I've got options. I'm going gut all the way now until the finish line, and so I'm not following what I think everyone else is going to do. It's just pure gut.
Was it this season or last season that you said was the year of the gut? I think it was last season.
Yeah, I think it was last season, and I ignored it. And every time I ignore it, because I do what common sense suggests. So my gut told me to put Delafeu in, ignored it, and he's done well. And do you know what? I was planning on taking him out this game week, but I might even go as far to say I'm going to captain Lukaku. # Emil Heskey's replacement. He is, I'm going Lukaku. Wow. I fancy Man United to do well at Newcastle, and he is going to be my captain. Gut check time.
Okay, wow. Well, I think that's very ballsy, and I think it's the type of thing that could well come off. And we know that Lukaku generally does pretty well against those types of teams that are further down the table, so it's pretty decent. It does leave Mo Salah open to me, but I'm not going to go there. I'm actually going to go with my tried and tested, not Harry Kane, but Sergio Aguero. I think this is. I'm not 100% sure of the timescale of Jesus' injury, but I know it's fairly imminent with him returning, so he's not going to be back in the squad this week. So it's with Champions League coming up and all that sort of stuff, I want to squeeze every last ounce of points that I can out of Sergio Aguero. So home game against Leicester. Then they may be a little bit more solid without Mahrez in the team, because I doubt Mahrez is going to travel this week to the Man City game. So I'm going to go Aguero. That's going to be my captain. I can't do Kane again. I just can't do it. I actually think Kane has scarred me this season. It's not the fixture, but
it's not the fixture.
There's some kind of voodoo or jinx with me and Harry Kane when I captain him. So it's probably not going to be a captain pick for me again.
I've just noticed as well, actually, we talk about Aubameyang and everything. Arsenal have Man City after this game week as well. It's a tough little duo of games there. Can you withhold and suffer maybe price rise? But difficult one there. Difficult. Yeah, I think that's not a bad option. I think Aguero, it's a home fixture. When they are firing, he could probably get 4 or 5 goals. So, he's a man that's hard to ignore. It may be that my gut weakens as we get closer to that deadline, and Aguero's my captain.
Okay, right. Make sure you got plenty of Alka-Seltzers then, or whatever they're called. Quigliano, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good to have you back on this week, and there's no podcast next week because there's no Premier League football next week, so we'll be back the week after that. It's been a pleasure. Good luck in Game Week 27, and we'll see you on the other side.